Shrubs are some of the most valuable plants I grow in my garden, both for glorious seasonal flowering displays and for year-round colour and interest provided by their leaves, their shapes, their sizes and their coloured stems. So in this video I'll introduce you to some of the shrubs I grow in my garden and show you how you could grow them in yours, whether in flower borders, as boundaries, or to create privacy, or perhaps in large pots to brighten up your patio. Whether it's summer blooms to bring in the butterflies, or flowers that fill your garden with fragrance, you can rely on shrubs to deliver year after year. Perhaps you want flowers in winter, something to brighten a cold winter's day, or a wonderful early flowering display in early spring. Even in a large patio pot, well, there are several shrubs that will do just that, like this Daphne Jacqueline postil for flowers in the depths of winter, or a range of camellias, some of the earliest flowering shrubs in my garden. It's fun developing a garden with shrubs that flower in every season, with something eye-catching in bloom through spring, like flowering currants with their lovely pendulous flower heads, and bold summer flowering shrubs that brighten up displays through May and June, like this lovely Woodgila with its trumpet-shaped flowers. Or how about Choisya montrose, an elegant upright shrub with generous heads of 5-petalled star-shaped flowers. As we move through late summer into autumn, you'll need something seasonal, like Ceratostigma, to plant towards the front of your borders, or perhaps Caryopteris. Neither grow too tall, and their foliage looks interesting before their flowers fully open, so you'll get months of interest from these shrubs. And although there isn't as much choice when it comes to winter flowering shrubs, I do love Mahonias, with lots of varieties to choose from that produce their golden flowers at different times, or perhaps choose one of the male forms of Skimmia, like Rubella, one of my favourites for seasonal patio pots, as their flower heads add colour from autumn right the way through winter until they burst open in spring to provide food for those hungry early flying bees. So a seasonal approach to choosing shrubs can really help you develop your garden to provide year-round interest. And there are many excellent varieties to choose from. And if you do spot a gap or planting opportunity at any time of year, I'll use this as an excuse to go shopping and choose something suitable to fill it, like here, adding a Caryopteris to my main flower border in autumn. Shape and size vary enormously in the world of shrubs, so choose plants carefully and pick varieties with these specific proportions to exactly fit the space you have available. Of course, the plant you buy will be small and it will grow over time, so it's always a balancing act between creating a display that looks good on day one and accepting that what you plant needs space left around it to grow. After all, gardens aren't static. They're living, growing, developing, evolving spaces, and this is all part of their beauty. You might want something tall to grow up along the back of a border, or like here along a boundary by my patio, creating a contrasting backdrop display to the patio pots in front of it. Or perhaps you want something small and compact. That would be a good choice for the front of a border, or to grow as a specimen on its own in a patio pot, like this little Leucothoe. I'll tell you about this one later. Not forgetting climbing shrubs too, like the star of Jasmine, or Trachelospermum, that make great choices for training up walls and fences, or perhaps up and over a garden arch or a pergola, with clusters of fragrant white flowers through summer. And then you have the limitless choice of colour. Flowers in almost any colour you want to suit your garden's colour schemes. And do consider shrubs with colourful or variegated foliage too, as this could create those bold statements every colour scheme needs. Not forgetting that green comes in so many shades too. Perhaps one of the biggest ways one shrub can vary from another is whether it's deciduous, like Woodgila, and loses its leaves in winter, or fully evergreen, like Choisya, so it has a permanent presence in the borders all year round, and I'll be including examples of both of these in this video. And while I love flowering shrubs and relish with anticipation their wonderful displays through the seasons, I also value the foliage colour of deciduous shrubs and have a special fondness for those that offer more than just green leaves. So in this video I'll share some of my favourites, like this lovely dwarf dogwood called Kelsey's Gold, and the dark purple, almost black foliage of Physocarpus diabolo that I grow alongside my patio. Or how about this climbing, scrambling jasmine called Fiona Sunrise that I grow up a trellis panel alongside my pergola arch. And some deciduous shrubs provide another season of interest once their leaves fall in autumn, like the dogwoods that have wonderfully coloured stems that catch the sun on bright winter days, or this unusual whitewashed bramble whose bare stems add interest to our winter border. In this video I'll highlight over 15 different shrubs that I'd thoroughly recommend to anyone creating a garden to provide flower and interest right the way through the year, shrubs that can form the backbone to your garden displays, and varieties that provide high points of colour to punctuate the season with their brilliant floral displays. So let's get started. This viburnum's looked lovely just in bud, but the flowers are opening now to pure white, and this will continue for a few more weeks now. I love the way the branches of this viburnum just spread out horizontally. I've trimmed it back a little bit here just so that I can enjoy the horizontal tiers of Viburnum Mauricii in this border here. If it starts growing out into the garden and stems are in the wrong place, just snip them off, pinch out the tips of the shoots or whatever. But at the moment, virtually the whole of each stem is covered with this beautiful display of white bloom. These will look gorgeous for weeks now, and I've always said this is one of my favourite shrubs. Early flowering around May into June time, giving a lovely display of bloom. I've got some Rudbeckia goldstem coming up at the bottom, so that's going to give me some golden flowers as we move through high summer into autumn. But for the moment, just enjoying this lovely display of white flowers. The purity is absolute perfection. So get out and enjoy your flowering plants when they're at their very best. Get up close and personal and just soak in the pleasure of growing a flowering shrub that comes back year after year with very little attention at all, just getting a little bit bolder, a little bit more blousy, a little bit taller, and putting on a display that really does steal the show and take centre stage when at its very best, as it is now. Choisya really is a valuable shrub, and I wouldn't be without it. It's not just those intoxicatingly fragrant flowers that make it so valuable. After all, Choisya tenata does have the common name of Mexican orange blossom, in honour of its glorious white flowers that fill the surrounding air with the rich scent of orange blossom. But it's the evergreen structure and form that gives this shrub year-round value and worthy of a spot in most gardens. It can be trimmed to maintain a compact size and shape too, rather like your trimmed topiary or hedging. And I've heard of people growing Choisya as a good evergreen replacement for box, which now suffers from several pest and disease problems. Now there's lots of different Choisya available, but I've got 3 different Choisya in my garden, similar to one another in that they're all hardy evergreen shrubs, but each with its own qualities and appeal. The first is Choisya tenata, that has established nicely to form the backdrop to one of my flower borders, where it's allowed to develop tall stems that carry a main flush of flower display through April and into May, and a second smaller flush of flowers at any time from late summer through to autumn, depending on the weather conditions. For me, in some years this can be as early as August, but in others this can be well into October. Now Choisya enjoys a site in full sun or maybe part shade and a free draining soil that holds moisture but doesn't sit too wet or waterlogged, as this can cause root rot. Choisya tenata produces 3 glossy deep green lobed leaves at the end of each leaf stalk, fanning them out to catch the light, and these stay on the shrub all year round, with new shoots developing in spring and growing longer through the year. Next in my garden is a golden version called Choisya Sundance. The leaf shape, form and flowering season is similar to Choisya tenata, but it produces wonderfully bright, glossy golden yellow new leaves through spring, making this an eye-catching shrub that really stands out on dull days. The new shoots grow longer month by month, and the leaf colour changes too. In dappled shade they can turn a paler green, but in full bright sun they remain a pale golden colour through the seasons. My Choisya Sundance started off life in a small pot used in a patio pot arrangement where its golden leaves provided evergreen interest right through the winter. But as it got larger and outgrew its pot, I found it a permanent spot in a sheltered border where it's flourishing. And thirdly, I've got Choisya Aztec Pearl, which has a main flowering season through spring into early summer, and a second much smaller flush of flower as we come through late summer into autumn. But this Choisya has a very narrow finger-like spreading hand-shaped leaf with 5 or so pointed long fingers at the end of each leaf stalk. This is a really beautiful shrub, here growing in a dappled shade position, which does mean it grows a little bit more lanky than if it was in full sun. But to keep it to shape, it prunes very easily. You can trim it over just to shorten the main shoots back to a framework, and you'll get new growth coming out every year. A beautiful evergreen shrub that contributes to your display right the way through the year. And while shrubs can be left to their own devices to grow larger, and they can reach a good 5 to 6 foot in height and spread over time, if you do feel you want to prune to control the size and shape of your shrub, then the best time to do this is immediately after flowering early in the year. You could prune sooner, just as the new shoots start growing, but you'll be cutting off the developing flowers at the tips of the shoots if you do, so you won't enjoy a flowering display. So I'd rather wait, delay until flowering is finished, and then give your plants a good prune. And just one word of caution, the new shoot tips on Choisya can be vulnerable to frost damage in cold regions, so might need to be protected by covering with a sheet of fleece on frosty nights, or choose a more sheltered position to grow them. If they do get touched by frost and they're damaged, just snip off those damaged shoot tips when you're pruning to encourage new growth to develop from further down the stem. Escallonia is a hardy evergreen shrub carrying its glossy, rather leathery leaves all year round. And Pink L is a superb variety, producing a generous display of bold flower heads at the very tips of shoots in summer, usually through June and July, and sometimes producing a smaller second flush of flowers again in the autumn too, around September. When I first spotted this variety growing in a neighbour's front garden, it really stopped me in my tracks. Fresh, colourful, vibrant heads of flowers opening against the foil of their deep green leaves. And these flower heads are larger than anything I've ever seen before on an Escallonia. There really isn't any other variety quite like it. It's superb. And the bees and beneficial insects will enjoy feeding from the flowers too. It prefers a moist but well-drained soil in a sunny site, although it can tolerate a little dappled shade for part of the day. Escallonia has a reputation for growing well in windy coastal areas, and Pink Ale is no exception. However, it might need protection from cold winds. and to this end some winter protection might be needed in very exposed or cold areas. And creating such a bold branched shrub does make Pink L a contender for a large patio pot too, grown as a single specimen where you can really appreciate its shape and flowering display, providing real impact from just a single shrub. Pink L is quite a compact shrub, growing to about 3 to 4 foot in height, and some people might want to plant several in a row to form a low flowering hedge. Its evergreen structure provides form right the way through the year, just what you want from a dividing hedge, with a flower display absolutely transforming your outlook in high summer. So this compact nature does make Pink L an excellent choice for small gardens too. Trimming over after flowering to deadhead and maintain the shape and form of this shrub will probably be the only pruning needed. But if you spot any long or wayward shoots growing out and spoiling its shape, just cut these back in mid to late spring. And if Pink L ever did get too big for the situation you've got it in, then it does take to hard pruning really well. You can cut all of the branches back just to a few inches from the base. Do that during the winter time, and as spring develops, new green shoots will sprout out from those woody bases and soon grow into new shoots, greening up, reshaping and producing a new shrub with a more manageable size for your garden. Over the years, I've grown quite a few different varieties of Hebe around my garden, including a few in patio pots, where their evergreen form provides interest right through the year, rather like clipped box topiary, but without the pest and disease problems that now decimate box. Repetition can be an interesting idea to play with in the garden, like here, where I've planted 3 Hebe Margaret in identical pots and use them to create a display. And as you move through summer, these lovely pale blue flower spikes develop from every leafy shoot, a real transformation. Hebe are sometimes called shrubby Veronica, and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and where you have a bit of space, then perhaps Hebe salicifolia, with its long white summer flower heads, could be suitable. Or how about Hebe Midsummer Beauty, that one of my neighbours grows in their front garden. It can grow to about 5 to 6 foot in height and has long racemes of mauvey lilac flowers that fade to white as they open and mature, and they're loved by bees and butterflies which feed from them. Dwarf and compact Hebe Donna Eva grows well in full sun and part shade, possibly in a large patio pot, and like its sister variety Hebe Emma, it will flower successionally through summer and into early autumn, with their evergreen foliage lasting all year round. To maintain their size and shape, most compact Hebes benefit from a light trim immediately after flowering to remove those dead flower heads. And if you want more than just plain green leaves, then there are Hebes with deep burgundy coloured leaves or variegated ones too, making them a useful evergreen shrub for year-round contribution to your displays. But do take note that some variegated forms aren't as stable as others, and new shoots can revert back to plain green over time. And as is the case with many shrubs, these green shoots tend to be stronger and more vigorous, eventually taking over the whole shrub. So as soon as you spot one, cut it away. Hardiness varies a lot, with some Hebes being hardier than others. So while most Hebes grow well in milder areas, in cold regions, some Hebes must be grown in a sheltered position, or they'll be damaged in a severe and cold winter. With the dwarf Hebe Margaret I grew in pots, I decided not to risk leaving them outside, but I moved them into my unheated greenhouse for winter and back outside once conditions warmed up the following spring. My Buddleja seems to be flowering even earlier this year. Normally I'd expect it to be flowering as we go through July, but I'm just through towards the end of June and I'm already getting some beautiful flower heads on this Buddleja nanoensis, or sometimes called nano blue. produces a lovely succession of blooms. First flowers are coming out. I'll enjoy these spikes. Then you've got the new flowers below, so I can cut this one out once it's finished flowering, and I'll enjoy the secondary flowers below. And once this whole thing has flowered, I will prune back, cut off the whole of the stem, and these side shoots lower down will develop a succession of flowers to go into autumn. So the key thing to keep the display looking good is to deadhead off with the old and encourage these side shoots lower down the stems to grow out and carry flowers through from high summer well into autumn. Hydrangeas are one of my favourite flowering garden shrubs, and I've got several growing in my garden in large patio pots planted in loam-based compost, in a raised ericaceous bed between a camellia and a rhododendron, and also in my borders. There are dozens of different varieties and species available, but I'm particularly fond of the summer flowering Hydrangea macrophylla varieties, which comprise of two groups which go by the names of mophead and lacecap. Most of these varieties carry their flowers at the top of the stems that were produced last year, or on short side shoots developing from the older wood that developed in previous years. One of my favourite lacecaps is Zorro, which has dark, almost black stems and leaf stalks and beautiful blue flowers. And for a white mophead hydrangea, I'd recommend Madame Émile Moulier, that's received the RHS Award of Garden Merit. In fact, I've had my plant for over 30 years now, and it's still growing strong. Her flower heads are creamy white in colour, opening to pure white and then fading with a pink tinge. And if you look very closely at the eye, at the centre of each individual flower, it will be either blue if you garden on an acid soil, or pink if your soil is alkaline. Of course, you'll be choosing hydrangeas for their flower colour, and they come in all sorts of shades of pink and red, white and more. Look out for varieties like Deep Purple Dance, or the striking hydrangea Red Angel. Their flower head shapes and forms vary tremendously too, like the enchanting Hydrangea macrophylla Hoveria Elaire Anniversary, or the dramatic flower display of Fireworks. These exploding heads of flower look really magical. Another favourite I grow in a large pot is Missouri, which has colourful purple leaves and unusual double flowers. This hydrangea really steals the show on my patio when it's in full flower through summer. And when you hear people advising you to leave these old flower heads in place through winter and into spring, the reason is that they provide frost protection to new growth buds developing lower down on the stems. These old flower heads capture the frost, so they hopefully prevent it from penetrating deep down into the hydrangea to reach those buds. But once the risk of heavy night frosts has passed, as we move through spring, these can be pruned away to provide space for the new shoots to develop, tidying your display, shaping up the shrubs ready for the new year ahead. I really hope you're enjoying this video, and if you are, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. That helps me produce even more inspiring videos just for you. You'll often catch the scent of mock orange before you see the plant itself, as Philadelphus is one of the most scented shrubs you can plant in your garden, filling the air with its refreshing citrus scent and making this a useful shrub to snip off a few sprigs to bring indoors to add fragrance to your home. Flowers on this early summer flowering shrub can start opening through May and are usually at their best in June and often continue well into July. There are quite a few varieties available, and most are single white flowers with 4 large petals, although there are some double flowered forms too. Philadelphus Belle Etoile is a good form and well worthy of its RHS Award of Garden Merit, as it has a beautiful ring of purple at the very centre of each flower, surrounding the protruding boss of stamens laden with pollen. And a translation of its French name, Belle Étoile, is something like beautiful star. A wonderful description of those bright white flowers that shine out like stars. There are some fully double and semi-double flowered forms too, like Minnesota Snowflake or the taller growing Philadelphus virginal. And while most varieties can be maintained to about 4 to 5 foot or so in height if pruned, there are some dwarfer and more compact ones that you might like to try. I've even seen some nurseries showing Philadelphus growing in large patio pots, like here with Petite Perfume White. Isn't it impressive when in full flower, and the fragrance must be amazing. These deciduous shrubs can be grown on their own, but I never feel they really have the neat form and structure of many evergreen shrubs that are more pleasing in shape. So I think they're best planted as part of a mixed border, or even along with others in a mixed hedge to add their summer flowers and fragrance. Once established, Philadelphus can be quite drought tolerant, but do make sure newly planted shrubs don't go short of water for their first few seasons until they're deeply rooted and well established. Most Philadelphus have a flowering period of perhaps 8 weeks or so, with their green foliage remaining until autumn, when it will fall and leave bare stems over the winter. But if your colour scheme allows and you'd like something with golden foliage that perhaps enhances the display more than their green counterpart, then do consider a golden leafed variety like Philadelphus Coronarius aureus, another variety with an RHS Award of Garden Merit. Its brilliant golden new foliage forms through spring, joined by scented pure white flowers as we move through into summer. And it only grows to about 3 to 4 foot or so in height, so it's ideal for small gardens too. On balance, I think I prefer the golden foliage as it brightens up borders from early in the year right through into autumn. For something unique and distinctly different, there's a new Philadelphus on the block called Petite Perfume Pink. Bred by Alan Postel from the world-famous Hillier Nurseries, this is the first truly pink Philadelphus and was the result of a 15-year breeding programme. It has deep pink buds, opening into pink flowers that gradually fade to soft white around their edges. It's hardy and quite compact, only growing to about 4 to 5 foot in height once well established. And this impressive new shrub also won the RHS Chelsea Flower Show Plant of the Year in 2025. With all Philadelphus, to maintain the size and flowering performance, I'd recommend pruning immediately after flowering in summer by cutting out a proportion of the very oldest stems. So take a look right down at the base of your shrub and prune out about 1 in 4 of the oldest stems using secateurs or loppers. This is called renewal pruning. It encourages new growth to develop from the base each year to replace the old stems you've removed. There are several other varieties of mock orange available too, so you could find others in your region that could be more suitable for your garden. So enjoy the search and see what you can find. I remember when this beautiful dark-leafed elder was first introduced and just had to buy one for my garden. This is Sambucus Black Beauty, a hardy deciduous shrub valued for its really dark burgundy, almost black foliage. And once established, this is a shrub that really makes a statement, with tall dark new shoots quickly extending upwards and outwards each year, creating a bold display. Now, when you think of elder, you often think of elder flowers, and this flowering shrub produces its flowers on 2-year-old wood. So you won't get any flowers on stems in their first year, and you need to leave these in place over winter, so new growth develops on them the following year, which carries the flowers. This flowering season is identical to ordinary green-leafed elder that I often see growing in wilder, natural areas around my area, or perhaps as part of a natural boundary or a hedgerow. Its flowers are pure white rather than the pink of Black Beauty, And as with all elders, the flowers attract bees and insects for pollination, and then they develop into reddish-black elderberries, which can be harvested and cooked to use in a variety of recipes, from jams and crumbles to elderberry liqueur. Or if you fancy making elderflower cordial, then these flowers can be harvested to make your own. And I do believe that if you collect flowers from these pink flowered elders, then these will give you elderflower cordial with a slightly pink colour to it. Dark-leaved elders can look lovely growing on their own, and I think they provide a tall, bold backdrop to a border, where their dark foliage sets off brighter coloured perennials growing in front. To keep my shrub a manageable size, I prune it hard back in winter. So let me quickly take you through this process. Before pruning, notice how my established Black Beauty has several thick woody trunks at the base, with long stems growing up and out from these. New stems can grow up to 8 foot or so during the year, so for the best foliage display, in winter just follow these stems back down to their base where they developed and cut them away. You'll often see some dark new buds starting to form at the base, especially if you prune towards the end of winter, and I cut to just above a few of these buds, as it's these that will grow out to form the new stems and the colourful dark foliage you'll enjoy over the following months. Following the successful introduction of Black Beauty, it wasn't long before the plant breeders successfully developed a finer split leaf variety of elder, which they called Black Lace. And you've guessed it, I soon found space to squeeze one into my garden. I don't find Black Lace quite as vigorous as Black Beauty, making it a much better choice for smaller gardens where space is limited. In a situation like this, I might be tempted to just prune this back hard each winter and enjoy the dark foliage display on the new shoots each year. But remember that if you do want to enjoy the flowers, and who wouldn't, you must not prune all of the shoots back, as you won't get any flowers at all. These flowers only develop on 2-year-old wood. So maybe cut some stems back to encourage new growth and new foliage, but leave some in place to carry flowers to enjoy through the summer. And of course, a few beautiful elderberries too. Physocarpus is another deciduous shrub that provides bold foliage impact through from spring into late autumn. I planted Physocarpus diabolo alongside my patio to provide a backdrop to the patio pot displays. Its lobed leaves develop a deep chocolatey purple colour, lovely for setting off the brighter colours growing up from pots positioned in front of it. The border here is actually quite narrow, but this Physocarpus is an upright shrub, and I can easily snip off any shoots that grow out of place to keep it within bounds. It will start off quite short and grow over time, but my shrub has been established for probably over 15 years now, so it's reached its maximum size, and it can be maintained to about 8 to 10 foot tall with selective pruning. The dark leaves look lovely through from spring, summer and autumn and provide a backdrop to a lovely variety of plants I grow in patio pots throughout the year. Physocarpus diabolo produces beautiful clusters of flowers too. In my garden, the flower heads develop through March and April, with the first white flowers opening in early May, with fully open balls of white flowers, perhaps with a touch of pink, at their best around the end of May and through June. These really transform the shrub, with the white flowers standing out clearly from the darker leaves of the supporting shrub. Then, as the flowers fade, these colourful seed heads start developing, starting with these tiny little red beads forming at the base of each faded flower. As with pruning many shrubs, I opt for a renewal pruning routine, cutting out a few of the very oldest and tallest woody stems close to their base each winter, choosing a point where a new young shoot is growing out that will grow up over the next 2 to 3 years to replace it. This is a system of replacement pruning. And pruning away a few of these oldest stems each year means that they're replaced by a few new ones with deeper coloured stems and fresh foliage. And to help with pruning, just remember that the common name of Physocarpus is 9-bark. And by looking at these stems, you can see the difference in bark colour between the new deep purple stems and the older, lighter coloured ones with peeling bark. It's a proportion of these older ones that need to be pruned out each winter. And as I said before, this is a narrow bed, and I want to keep the new stems growing up, rather like a fan, in front of the boundary. So I prioritise cutting out any developing forwards towards the patio to avoid them growing out over the patio pots in front of them. As with many shrubs, there are dwarf and compact alternatives to choose from, equally valuable for their attractive foliage and summer flowers, but staying a more manageable size. And that's why it's important to do your research, to check on the ultimate size shrubs can grow before you buy them, as these small shrubs that you buy in garden centres don't reflect how large the plants can ultimately grow. Tiny wine is a much more compact form than Diabolo, probably only growing to about 4 foot or so in height once established, so perhaps this could be a better choice for patio gardens and small spaces. Or how about this for something glorious and bright, a golden-leaved form of Physocarpus called Tiny Wine Gold. Tough, hardy, growing to about 4 foot, and producing its showy flowers at the tips of those main shoots from late spring into early summer. Now, this is a plant that really makes a statement. And when you're thinking about long-lasting colour, in addition to the flowers, don't forget foliage. In addition to the perennials, don't forget shrubs. And this is a little dwarf, compact Dogwood variety, a cornus variety. This is called Kelsey's Gold. I've grown this for many, many years now. Only grows to probably, and I keep it pruned back in the spring, but it only grows to a couple of foot or so in height and produces this lovely display of golden leaves through the whole of the year. As we move into autumn, the foliage itself will take on some beautiful autumn colours too. The stems can look attractive, so I'll leave, as with many dogwoods, leave those stems on for the winter, but right at the end of the winter, the spring, I'll cut those stems back to a little crown of woody stems at the base, and then you'll get the new growth growing up through the spring. And those woody stems you can use to take hardwood cuttings to propagate even more of your cornus varieties. So Kelsey's Gold, I love it at the front of my border. I've got a nice sedum called Mr. Goodbud growing alongside, and that just acts as a nice foil and a display here. So low growing, good at the front of a border, beautiful gold colour, shines out on a bit of a dull day like I've got today. Gold is lovely to have in the colour, and the display of golden foliage like this, which looks good right the way through the year, right the way through autumn too, is certainly something I'd recommend adding to your borders. But of course there are other cornus varieties, and going up from Kelsey's Gold, I've got another variegated leaf cornus at the back of this display. This forms a really large backdrop to my main border. I didn't cut it back too much last year, so I've let those stems grow up. They produce a lovely variegated leaf, a green leaf with a beautiful creamy margin on it. So these variegated corners do look lovely, and for the winter display, that lovely deep red stem. These red stemmed dogwoods can look gorgeous through the winter. If you just want to maintain this shrub in more compact proportions, then I would prune it hard back at the end of winter, beginning of spring. I would cut all of that growth right the way back down, and you'll get new shoots coming up from the base, tall stems which will produce leaves, but you won't enjoy the flowers and fruit, these really only develop on old stems, on more mature wood. But if you're just interested in foliage and you want something of manageable proportions, just keep your dogwoods pruned back and you can enjoy those in your display. So even in this little border here, a nice compact Kelsey's Gold and a backdrop for beautiful dogwood to provide more colour and interest right the way through the year. To raise my spirits on short and dull late winter days, I wouldn't be without camellias. The first to flower in my raised bed is a variety called Garden Glory, with its simple, symmetrical flowers opening at the tips of the shoots, usually in February, but continuing into March. This shrub is quite upright growing, and these pretty pink flowers stand out from the deep, glossy green leaves cladding each stem. Camellias are acid lovers, so they need to be planted in an acid soil or an ericaceous compost. They hate chalky and alkaline soil, just like other ericaceous shrubs do, like rhododendrons, azaleas and pieris. So, if your soil is alkaline, then consider building a raised bed, like I've done, and filling it with an ericaceous compost that you can buy at garden centres, so you can provide exactly the soil conditions that camellias love. In terms of position, camellias will grow well in full sun, but they also grow well in dappled shade, which is the position that I've created in my raised bed. This bed faces north and is shaded by the house from the sun for much of the day, just receiving some direct sunlight towards the end of the afternoon and into the evening. For colour continuity, I've planted a second camellia close to my house, a compact and slow-growing variety called Contribution that starts flowering through March, but whose generous display reaches its peak as we move through April, producing large, double, light pink blooms and lots of them. As flowers open over quite a long period, it's important to regularly pick off faded petals and flowers, removing all those brown petals to prevent them sitting wet on the leaves and causing rotting. And just one word of warning, camellia flowers are prone to damage by frost, especially where plants are growing in an open position where frosted flowers are exposed to early sun that quickly melts the ice, which damages the blooms. To avoid damage, it might be possible for you to throw a sheet of horticultural fleece over your plant and peg it in place to prevent the frost from settling on the petals. This can be removed once conditions warm up the following morning and the frost has lifted. Remember to keep up the watering through autumn. Really give them a good soak to make sure they never go short of water, particularly any camellias growing in pots. The thing is, at this time of year, the camellia is starting to form its flowers. Little flower buds are developing at the tips of all the shoots. And if the camellia goes short of moisture during the autumn months, August through September, October, November, if they go short of moisture, then the buds don't develop properly and they can fall off before the flowers fully open next spring. So make sure you keep camellias really well watered, particularly when the weather is dry. And rainwater is best for watering your camellias, so collect some in a water butt if you can, but that's often empty by late summer when you'll have to resort to the garden hose instead. So keep an eye on leaf colour too. Tap water can contain lime or chalk that slowly reduces the soil's acidity and makes it more alkaline, and this in turn can result in the leaves of your camellias gradually getting paler and losing their deep green lustre. The answer is to feed, drenching the root zone with a solution of ericaceous plant food, sequestered iron or something similar made for acid-loving plants to make sure that the leaves green up and they remain healthy. I'm always looking for new ideas to cover on my gardening channel, so if you've got some favourite plants or any topics you would like more ideas and inspiration for, do drop a comment below and I'll try and cover those in my future videos. Thank you. Sometimes you want something in a pot which is going to have a permanent presence right the way through the year. I've got a range of shrubs around my garden which do that, in addition to perennials like the Hydrangea or big pots of hostas, which just give you the summer foliage and interest. But this little pot here, which is a pot about 12 inches wide and 12 inches high, has got a Leucothoe in it. Leucothoe is a hardy shrub, and this is a variety called curly red, because the leaf itself has that lovely curled form, but has red tinges through the year, as well as green coloration too, making it a really attractive plant to have, just to provide that colour and interest right the way through the year. So this small pot was planted up with this little shrub. It will only grow to about perhaps 1.5 feet to 2 foot in height, so it's not going to get an awful lot taller than this. It can be pruned quite easily, and hopefully you can even use some of these shoots as cuttings. But for a foliage feature plant on your patio, here with companions like the sedum thundercloud and this lovely little sempervivum called coconut crystal, is going to provide interest right the way through the year. It's a foil for other plants too, other summer bedding plants, which maybe give you the summer colour. But doesn't that leaf catch the sun beautifully on a day like this? Leucothoe curly red, hardy, reliable, evergreen, providing that permanent presence in a patio pot right the way through the year. Dwarf and slow-growing evergreen shrubs are a great choice for including in patio pot planting recipes, like euonymus green rocket, with its deep green foliage that I have in a large container outside my front door. This upright shrub has spread slightly to fill in at the back of the display behind a variegated ivy that spills out over the front, and an evergreen skimmia that is filling out nicely at the front, developing flower buds through autumn that will fatten up through winter and fully open in spring to create a really impressive display. But check around your local nurseries to see what else you can find, like clipped box cones or other evergreen topiary that grows well in large patio pots, or clipped herbs like bay that carries its foliage all year, so you've always got a few leaves to pick and use in cooking. But it also produces dainty small creamy yellow flowers through April too. And while I'm talking about bay, you could also consider herbs like rosemary, such an impressive herb when it's in full flower in spring. And there's a lovely pendulous weeping form that does look striking, tumbling down the sides of a tall terracotta pot. This is Kew Gardens, one of David Austin's English shrub roses. And this is what they mean when they talk about repeat flowering performance. Kew Gardens will flower almost continually through the summer, right the way through into autumn. I'm here in the middle of September now, and I've got some roses in full flower, masses of buds still to come, some flowers over which need to be deadheaded, but the continuity of blooming through the year from Kew Gardens is absolutely superb. When the flowers first start developing, they've almost got an apricot colour to them, and as the petals open to reveal these beautiful single flowers, the petals become whiter, but the centre boss of stamens stays fresh and golden and beautiful. And another thing which is nice about Kew Gardens is that the stems of this rose are almost thornless. Can't find any thorns on these at all, so very easy to grow, very easy to prune. No thorns down these main stems at all. So really attractive in so many ways. When you're looking for plants to fill your borders and beds around the garden. It's great to find a plant which has got a presence all year round, and that's why I chose this evergreen flowering shrub to take a pride position in a raised bed filled with ericaceous acid compost just outside the back door of my house. This is the mountain laurel. Its Latin name is Kalmia latifolia. This plant's been in here for a number of years now, grown. Now it's a few feet off the ground at the bottom of the raised bed, but it's probably now about 5 foot or so in height. Forms a lovely bold feature, and this brings the flowering display in my acid bed to an end. Season started with rhododendrons and camellias and azaleas coming through February, March, April and May, and as we move into early summer, into June, the Kalmia comes into full flower. Once flowering's over, some deadheading is needed to tidy up the plant and display. So wait a few weeks and then these old seed heads could be gently picked off. Just go over the whole plant bit by bit, grasp the old seed head and just almost tear it off. It will break away quite easily. You could use a little pair of snippers if you want to loosen them, but otherwise sometimes just putting your nail in, bending them back and they will come away. Just remove all of the seed heads to tidy up the display. New leaves will be developing from the tips of these shoots as well, and those new shoots will carry flowers the following year. Kalmia is an extremely hardy evergreen shrub, a member of the ericaceous or heath family, hence its requirements for an ericaceous or an acid soil. A peaty soil would be perfect too, but Kalmia dislike lime or an alkaline or chalky soil of any sort. If you've got an area that likes camellias or rhododendrons or azaleas, perhaps in a woodland garden setting, then Kalmia should flourish too, making a good companion that extends the flowering season from those early spring flowering shrubs well into summer. When fully mature, some varieties of Kalmia can reach up to 12 foot or more in height, but this could take many, many years, so I wouldn't be too worried about them getting too large in most gardens. And to be honest, Kalmia don't really need pruning at all, so try and grow them where they have the space to fill with their natural shape and beauty. Different varieties of Kalmia have buds and open flowers in different colours, from red through to pale pink, some white, others two-toned with bands or spots of deeper pink, red or even burgundy around them. I'm growing Kalmia latifolia in my garden, which is a native to areas of North America, such as New England and Quebec, New York State, and Ohio down to Louisiana and West Florida. In these areas, it was commonly found growing in deciduous forests and often among rocks on an acid soil. There are a number of named varieties of Kalmia you could consider too. Olympic Fire can grow quite tall after a few years if it really likes the position it's growing in, relishing a sunny site where the soil remains moist. Its deep reddish pink buds burst open into attractive pink flowers. Snowdrift stays to a manageable size for most gardens, only reaching about 5 foot in height and forming its small pristine white flowers through June and into July. Minuet is a very dwarf variety, only reaching about 1 foot or 2 in height. Its clusters of cupped flowers are white with a bold band around the inside. Carousel has a similar red band but grows much larger, possibly over time up to about 8 foot tall. Ostoba Red stays quite short, reaching about 4 foot when established, with deep red buds opening into pale pink flowers with a lovely deep pink band around the very centre of the flower. The flowers are almost octagonal in shape too. And this is Kalmia Angustifolia rubra, another low-growing variety which only reaches a couple of feet in height, but it can spread more widely. Its broad habit of deep green leafy stems can grow into quite a thicket. It carries its rosy red flowers over a really long period through May and June. There are other varieties listed in the catalogues you might find available, like the speckled red ginkgona, the pure white elf, pretty pink Kalmia latifolia little Linda, or kaleidoscope with lightly scented burgundy coloured blooms. So if Kalmia take your fancy, start doing some internet research to find out which varieties are available where you live. So there you have it, the lovely evergreen mountain laurel, giving you a flowering shrub which really does steal the show in early summer. Lots of different forms, dwarf forms, compact forms you can choose. The ordinary Kalmia latifolia, a great choice for the garden. Very trouble-free, flowers every year. Just that deadheading to remember once flowering is over. Otherwise it might be something you could find a space for in your own garden. On my garden arch I've got a mix of a few different climbing plants. On this side I've got the golden hop, and on this side, there's my little poodle Bella, hello Bella, is a jasmine, a summer flowering jasmine called Fiona Sunrise. Beautiful golden foliage, fragrant white flowers. As I walk through the arch I can really smell the beautiful fragrance which comes from these little dainty white flowers which you can enjoy through summer. It's a really good, I'd call it a climbing shrub to grow up a trellis panel alongside a garden arch or something like that. As you'll see, it's already reached the top and it's growing over the top. The stems just sort of, they don't cling, but they will just twine their way through the trellis panel and give them a little bit of a helping hand through the summer as well, just to get them up to the top. The tips of these new shoots here, as you can see, you've got the flowers coming. You'll get a succession of these beautiful fragrant white flowers through the summer. It will carry those leaves right the way through to the end of the year. They'll fall in the autumn, probably October into November time, and then it's deciduous, so it will lose the leaves completely in the winter. If I get any really long straggly shoots like this coming over and getting away, just to snip them back, cut them back a little bit, but otherwise this is a really good shrub to grow alongside your garden arch. I've got it mixed in here with some honeysuckle. There's a wisteria down at the far end which flowered earlier in the year, and as I say, on the other side of my garden arch I've got the golden hop. So it's a few climbers to add colour and interest to your arch, your pergola feature, wherever you've got maybe a garden fence or some trellis panels dividing up your garden. Really good shrub to grow. Jasmine, Fiona Sunrise. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that selection of shrubs, many of which I grow in my garden. If you've got any favourites, do drop a comment below so I can see which shrubs have caught your eye. I've got many more in my garden which I hopefully will feature in future videos, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover in my gardening videos in future. But for now, from me and from my garden, happy gardening.